Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Edge of Your Seat episode of Early Bird Anime with Meg and Dan.
I'm Meg.
And I'm Dan, and today we're reporting live from the Not Racetrack and hoping not to get blasted into little tiny pieces by nitro blasters and racers and dog people, because today we watched Redline.
Redline.
I love that name. It just sounds so cool.
It is very cool.
Meg, would you like to tell us a little bit about Redline?
I will do my best. So, Redline is about an hour and 45 minutes animated movie which debuted at the Locarno International Film Festival back in August 2009 and was released in Japan in October of 2010. It was originally scheduled earlier, which was delayed because production took a really long time. It took 7 years because the movie was entirely hand-drawn, which is very impressive. I believe it was from Madhouse. There was a prequel OVA that was released in 2003 that had 4 episodes, which was called Trava, Fist Planet, which this OVA tells the story of an ex-military duo that really only has a minor side role in Redline. But I thought that was an interesting thing, and maybe we'll watch it sometime. The general consensus of this film seems to be that it doesn't really have much depth to it, but it is highly praised for its colors, its style, its action sequences, and it's got a rating of about an 8 on both IMDb and MyAnimeList, so we'll get into what we think of that soon as well. And just an interesting little bit of trivia, the Japanese voice actor of the protagonist JP is Kimura Takuya, also known as Kimutaku, of the best-selling boy band in Asia, SMAP.
What does SMAP stand for?
I'm not sure. It might not mean anything. Daniel, please tell us what Redline is about.
Sure. So, in the distant future, old-school muscle car racing captures the attention of viewers across the galaxy. The race to end all races is the Redline, the fastest, most high-octaniest, and perilous courses ever to be conceived. And it only takes place once every 5 years in a different location. This year, Redline is being held on Robo-World, a refugee planet owned by a very militaristic empire that wears armbands, and they really don't want the race to be there for nefarious reasons. But the racers do it anyway because it makes a lot of money. And this is where our protagonist, Sweet JP, comes in. A fan favorite who's stuck fixing races for the Mafia. He has a thing for another racer named Sonoshi McLaren, a rival of his of sorts and a bit of an inspiration. And then there's some other stuff going on too, but we'll talk about that later. Pretty much, it's just a race. A lot of explosions and a lot of big colors, and there's like a Cthulhu monster and a nuclear baby and puppy dog people.
It gets pretty crazy.
It is very crazy. So maybe we already said it, but Meg, how did you find Redline?
If you're asking for my general impression of it, then I really enjoy this movie. It's just a lot of fun and just a really crazy ride, which I appreciate that kind of thing, like over-the-top action. Definitely the first thing that you notice, the thing that stands out the most is the art and the animation. It is absolutely gorgeous. I can't even really express it. It's got great colors that are really bright but not blinding. Really fantastic use of shadows. They have it all of the shadows are blocked out in black, which gives it a really stark, really heavy kind of feel to it. It does a really good job at making the movie feel crazy and crowded. It feels like chaos. And I mean that in the best way possible, because just like there's so much clutter in the backgrounds and in the characters are all crowded in together in a lot of places, and they're all grotesque and really detailed, and there's all these beautiful explosions and shrapnel flying everywhere and like motion stretching, and it's just, I love looking at it. It is fantastic to look at.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if neon black is something that exists in the color spectrum, but like the blacks are so rich, and the rest of the colors are too, but without making you want to throw up. It's a really cool style choice that they did, and it complements the physics of racing, I guess you could call it. Like everyone's very their proportions are all weird, and their bodies and their faces sort of jiggle, and they're almost like jelly people sometimes. because they're so very grotesque and mushy looking. But it's so cool because, like, you know, watching these races go by, if you're there live, like some of the audiences, like, you can only see the car like a blur. And if the car is long, you just see a really long blur, like a really long color blur. So it's sort of fitting that the people would be too. And JP, our protagonist, has like the probably world record biggest bouffant I've ever seen.
It's pretty impressive.
Tall, lanky dude. And then you have, he's just a human or a humanoid. And then you have these weird color cast of attendees that are these really squishy looking aliens, and they're kind of gross to look at and disturbing, but I really like that. And I was telling Meg before when we were watching it that there's a lot of like sci-fi or futuristic movies that have sort of made me feel put off in their art style choice because they were going for very gritty and the future had not improved. It was very like it's gotten even worse. And on the obverse of that, it's like a utopian future. It just lacks color, and it's hard for me to like stuff that takes place like the deep future because everything makes me feel uncomfortable. But I understand now through this movie that it's perfect to make me feel uncomfortable. It's like the characters make me feel uncomfortable because they don't look right and they do things that are weird. And that complements the world because the world isn't great, as seen with the weird Nazi people.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not Nazis. Armband-wearing government authoritarians. But yeah, one last point that I'd like to make too is I noticed like with the shading, everyone, I'm like, they were like chrome. They were like very shiny, which is fitting because so are really nice cars. It's a really interesting movie just for the art, and part of me felt like, I won't even say this is it's half a real complaint and half just a nitpick because the movie is so beautiful to look at and you want to just observe it all. Like I wanted to pause every few seconds just to see what was going on because not only is it beautiful to look at, but there's a lot going on.
Absolutely.
And because I can't understand Japanese spoken, I have to read, and it's the one time I kind of wished like, you know, I wasn't watching a sub. I wanted to be able to look at everything, and I had to force myself to look down. So I don't know if that's a real nitpick or not, but I think it is an interesting conflict if you think about it, where you create a really great visual world, but I have to look away from it to understand what's going on. But I think that might be a language barrier thing as well. So that's only just a real food for thought. Anything else to add as far as art direction goes?
Not in terms of the art. You can go ahead because I know you have some things that kind of messed up the experience for you a bit. So.
Well, I wouldn't say the experience was messed up for me. It was just, like I said, this movie, and like you said as well, the movie's biggest selling point is the visuals and the action and what's going on. And that's great. But the problem for me was, I'd say maybe halfway into the movie, I sort of started losing interest in it because I wanted to find out more about the characters. And this is a movie or a story that is not so focused on the story part. It's really big, and I guess this could be both a praise and a criticism, that it's got great world building stuff in it. It's like got amazing funny little things everywhere going on. Little things that the characters do, like, will let you into the world a little better. Like, it's not just enough that, oh, this is a weird puppy person or this is a crab guy. It's like, no, what does the crab guy do? Oh, he talks this way. Oh, this guy's a robot who can connect to his own car and drive it that way. And it's like, this world is nuts. Like, it is bonkers.
Oh yeah, so much stuff is happening. And that is definitely, I think, one of the weaker points to it, is that you have so much stuff going on, and a lot of it doesn't really connect to anything. It's just kind of stuff that's happening in the background or happening with characters that are pretty unrelated and ultimately don't have anything to do with our main protagonists, JP and Sonoshi. So you have like this military guy who's really upset because some of his military buddies deserted and are now participating in the Redline. And there's like a good amount of screen time devoted to him and to those two, when really they're not there enough to be considered alternative main characters, but their arc doesn't really have anything to do with JP and Sonoshi. It doesn't affect them at all. Even the military plotline, they're afraid of the race exposing all of their secret military weapons that they're developing in violation of a treaty, and so that would be really bad for them. But that doesn't really affect much of anything aside from now the racers have a few extra guns pointed at them while they're racing. But like, I don't know. I feel like all that stuff is there more to ramp up the action of it than to provide an actual counterpoint to our protagonists. And you could definitely call that a flaw. Definitely the characters felt really sketchy in the sense that they had the general outline of what the character was supposed to be kind of roughly in place, but the movie never really filled that in with a lot of motivation and backstory. Like, you have JP, who's a racer because he likes Sonoshi, and you have Sonoshi, who's a racer because her dad liked cars or something.
Yeah, she just kind of says, oh, my dad liked racing, we were a racing family.
Yeah. And then with JP, you also have that masculine ideal of the guy with cars and babes. But the movie never really deals with those motivations in a way that makes them feel like they've developed at all.
Yeah, and that was a kind of a problem that I had, where I was hoping certain things and certain characters would be reflecting on the world or would have more bearing on the story. JP likes racing because he saw a guy once with 2 buxom women, and that's it. Like, that's all we see. And I'm like, okay, I get that. Looking up as a child, like, this guy is living a glamorous lifestyle. But I just feel like that's not enough for me to feel fully satisfied. And then you later on get, like, he saw Sonoshi racing a long time ago, and she was like, she said something that sort of motivated him. That's cool. That's still really not enough for me personally, but I can let it pass. But Sonoshi is like, yeah, my dad raced, but we don't get to see any of it. We get to see her racing in JP's flashback, where she is, she said this thing to motivate him. And it's interesting because it's like, but why does she feel so strongly about this?
Right.
We don't know, and it's over. And I don't know, there's a lot of stuff that I was hoping would just be a little bit more full, considering how much care was put into the visuals and the humor, and the character designs. And it's like, there's 8 racers, or 8 cars in total, I think, racing in the Redline. And each racer gets a profile at some point on the nightly television or something. And I found some of it really interesting because you have like, oh, this guy's like the king of racing. Like, he's won every Redline for the past 20 years. These girls are from like the Princess Bubblegum Planet or something. I can't remember what it was called. And they're like they're parodies of these like sugar pop stars, like super sexualized sugar pop stars.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought they were hilarious for that.
Oh, so did I.
But I also thought this was kind of interesting that in the end, like, the Redline wasn't really, like, there was no goal, really, other than just, oh, I beat the Redline. Like, there was money, I think. It's like, oh, we could have enough money to buy 4 planets.
That was, garnered through betting, I believe.
Yeah, garnered through betting, though. You're right. And are there any accolades other than praise for the Redline? I don't think so. And you have such a colorful cast of racers that it would be interesting if everyone was trying to race for a different reason. Or even, I thought it was like a trick to me, where you see the deserters from the military are like, yeah, we're going to be in the race too, and they're talking to JP and Sonoshi, and then, what was it, the Wheel King? What was his name? He was in the bar too, and you had a little bit of interaction in the bar. But that's only 4 racers out of the 8, and half the movie is really just downtime between fixing the car and then waiting for the race to start. And that's alright, but I was hoping that in that downtime, the racers would be discussing stuff, or clashing with each other about this and that, or learning more about what's going on. And another thing too, because JP has a mechanic that he's friends with, and the mechanic, mods his car and everything, and they're close friends. But he also got involved in the mob, and all the races that they've been in, for the most part, they've been rigged. Like, they take the fall, they never win the races. And there was no real, like, interaction between them except in the very beginning, and it wasn't that substantiative to me, where either of them felt a little bit of regret for losing the race or making one do the other. And I just thought that people who are close friends would probably talk to each other a little bit more than these characters did.
Right.
And it's just like you could talk at length about a lot of the things that don't really work in the movie, but it's still an interesting movie. I just think that the characters, there needed to be more struggles for them to overcome. Like, and you can't even say, oh, it was internalized. It was like, oh, JP's getting over fixing races. He's got to finally win a race for once. That's like a pretty good one, but he never shows that that's his main motivation. And you could say, well, maybe the main motivation is just to race to live. That's fine, but that, once again, isn't really shown. It's kind of like the story takes the back seat. I've been making a lot of car puns, both in my notes and now in this show. But it takes a back seat to the action and the color and what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. And to be perfectly honest, I kind of feel like it works for this movie. And it's interesting that I find myself saying this because I feel like a lot of times I would be really unsatisfied with this movie and with like its lack of meat. I don't know. I still just really enjoy watching it. It's so much fun to watch. Like, I love the tongue-in-cheek kind of attitude of the movie. It knows exactly how ridiculous it is, and it just takes that to extremes. And that type of over-the-top stuff is exactly my thing. So it's kind of hitting that weakness of mine. These will kind of turn into my final thoughts on the matter, but to me, it doesn't really bother me that much. The flaws don't bother me so much because it's so much fun to watch and it's so beautiful to look at. That kind of thing in this particular case takes a back seat to the actual artistic experience of watching it. And I mean, if you did not have the really good art style and the tongue-in-cheek humor, this would be a terrible movie. But because it does have that aspect of it that's worth it, flaws aside, it's still just really entertaining. And in this case, that's all that I can really expect to get out of it, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I can understand that, absolutely. I think what the movie succeeds in, it does very well. It has a great sense of humor. Maybe not great, but it's a very good, as you said, tongue-in-cheek, understated at times, over the top at others. It's got a great style visually, and you're right, the movie knows exactly what it is. It's like this super macho power trip in a way where it's like, okay, JP's got a giant bouffant and rides a giant motorcycle with a big wheel in the front. Like,
yeah,
a lot of, I won't say straight up phallic imagery, but it's like, it's a power trip. It's like a sexual thing.
Mm-hmm.
And even the character Sonoshi is like, I don't have time for boys because the only love I could ever get's from a car. Reminds me of a character from the Golden Boy anime that we'll watch at some point. And I think I can enjoy it on that ground. It's just I started to lose my enjoyment when it hit a certain point in the movie,
right,
where I thought that it was becoming less of a over-the-top movie and started falling into place with things that the movie was sort of trying to not do, which disappointed me. I won't go into the specifics about it. I really like the way some characters were turning out, and then they just turned out the other way.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this isn't even a spoiler, but, you know, for no reason, Sonoshi's just seen walking around in her apartment without a shirt on. And I had this is interesting, because you and I both have different opinions on it. Whereas I was kind of annoyed at it at first, but then I thought, well, it's also interesting because this is her house, this is her private life, she could do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
But then you said, well, it's also fan service because she has big boobs and now you can see the boobs. I said, yeah, I guess I am just trying to find a silver lining in this gratuitous scene of boobs.
It's less about her having big boobs and more about there was literally no point whatsoever to that scene. I just think about how long it must have taken to do that scene, like that 3-second scene that really didn't need to be there.
Someone spent 5 years drawing those areolas and...
But which, you know, and it's not even that big of a deal for me because what I like about this movie is that it just does what it wants. It's not really subscribing to the rules of this is how you construct a narrative, this is how you construct a movie. And part of me kind of likes that just, screw that, we're going to do what we want.
Yeah, yeah. So, I guess, my long-winded conclusion is I can't really call this a good movie, but I can say I was really into it, if that makes any sense.
It was fun. I think it was absolutely worth watching. That was my second time seeing it, and I will probably see it again in the future, just because it's cool and it's a good way to pass a couple hours. So I highly recommend it on those grounds.
I say I would definitely watch it again, because maybe on a second viewing I would enjoy it more now that my expectations are in different places. And I would say it would be a great movie to keep on in the background while you're doing something else, or have in a museum. Like some live feed TV of this movie. Like, oh yes, very nice. I like this still from this scene. And
yeah, lots of great stills.
Yeah, like I said, it's not a good movie, but it's a movie that it succeeds for sure. The art is the main takeaway, not the story.
Yeah, it succeeds in entertaining you.
And by saying it's not good, I don't mean it's complete utter garbage, because it's not. It's just for me it fell in a very strange middle ground of I'm not exactly sure how to call. I guess I'll recommend it. There we go.
There we go.
I'll recommend it despite its shortcomings.
Alrighty.
So this was a very interesting review, kind of polarizing at points and at times on the same page. And if you feel like you felt a different way, let us know in the comments section. We'll be sure to look at them. And give a subscribe if you like us. We are the Discount Ramblepants.
And remember, don't judge someone's skill by their character.
Goodbye.
Bye.